goals as sharing their experience and knowledge in their fields, and also we expect to interact in their comfort zone. So don't miss it out the golden opportunity. To give a brief on the process, the sessions will be start on time and it will be like Q&A sessions that includes questions by us and participants, and the last 15 minutes will be utilized for the participants questions. We expect to conduct this event little bit funny so we can learn in our comfort zones. Participants who are willing to ask may raise their hands, so there will be our turn and we will enter you into this. So on this launching day, we have the former president of Law Students Associations of Sri Lanka and founder of Democracy and Governance Initiative of Sri Lanka, and a visionary social activist who fights for the ethical rights of everyone, especially for women, a political critic who have wide knowledge of politics and the image and emotions of Sri Lankans. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's warmly welcome Sajini Vikramasinghe, our guest speaker. Hello,
Hello,
Sajini.
Mitu. Hi, it's great to be here today. Thank you for inviting me, first of all, and love to see your energy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to meet you too on this special occasion, especially. So, we would like to hear a few things about you and the session today for our audience.
Sure. So I think today's session, Vitu will be starting it off. Maybe we can directly go to the discussion, and along the way we can, if there are anything to be clarified, maybe the audience can ask. Shall we directly go to the session so that, yeah, we can save some time for the participants to ask questions? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, let's move on to the most awaited moment. So, starting from the question, you achieved various goals till now. What are satisfying and close to the heart accomplishments or experience in your life?
Yes, I think that's a good question. I think I firstly joined community service right after my A levels, and I did in 2015. So I saw it as an opportunity because I was fresh out of school, and I went to a Sinhala Buddhist girls' school, so I had no whatever exposure to anyone from any other ethnicity. Right? Trust me, it's a huge issue in Sri Lanka as well. So I had not known anyone from any other ethnicity. So when I went out I wanted to get to know people. I wanted to meet people. And when I joined, I think I first joined UNV Force. And I think starting from that, everything I have done up to now, it's a very great memory. And the reason for that is you need to always make decisions from your heart, right? If you don't feel like being in some organization, you don't feel like, you don't like their work ethics, you don't know like how they work, you don't feel very comfortable with the people, you don't like how they treat you, just get out of it, right? That's the key, to be in a place that you feel good about, and from those places you will make the best memories out of it. So I think my first organization that I joined was United Youth Consortium, which worked extensively on HIV patients and raising awareness of that. But we also did we started off like that, but we also continued because the people I met there, some of them are still my best friends. So you need to put yourself out there to meet great people, to build networks, because we in Sri Lanka, we are coming from a very restrictive background. So after school, you need to put yourself out there, join whatever the movements that you can, join networks, not only for the opportunities but also to meet people, and you will learn a lot from them. And I think throughout that journey, some of the accomplishments that are most memorable to me are, we did these trainings to this school in a rural area, and we did this camp for the prefects. And I think these are not big things, but even though I have done for some extent, like big things, these small things are the very heartiest accomplishments, the things that you did for the kids, and how you changed their lives. And especially when I became the president of Rotary Club of Faculty of Law, and we did many projects there which were very hearty to me. We actually approached the in Noredia, we approached this tea planting, tea estate community, and we actually met them to, we actually wanted to give a solution for, and to actually help them with the Palmyra organization, and we wanted to actually help them with financial management. So we went there and we actually met the people, and it meant a lot, how to meet in those people and what difference you can make in them. And also, I think another accomplishment that's very close to my heart is people telling me that, Aki, you're an inspiration to me. You motivate us. I think that sort of getting that sort of feedback means a lot. Because you feel like, okay, you have actually become an inspiration to them. And I think it's not really what position. Okay, I became the president of this and that. I found this and that, but the outcome of it, that will actually be very close to your heart. So I think that is my heartiest accomplishment.
That's indeed inspiring for us too. So we have a lot to learn from you as well, from your experiences. So moving on, most of the people's life has a turning point that's changed their perspectives and lifestyles entirely, which make them realize who they are and the society as well. So do you have any such turning point in life? Can you share with us?
I think, okay, so how I live my life is, I think every point of my life is a turning point to me, because I am someone who's very committed to self development, right? If I read books, I watch YouTube videos, I watch TED Talks, because I do not think I'm a perfect person. I think I can be developed every day. So I think that's also something, a big lesson that I want to give all of you. Just work on yourself every day, right? Just because you came into a position, just because you're in your dream job, do not stop your self development journey. I think we can talk about it a bit later as well. But I think one incident, so likewise, I cannot pinpoint. There are like sudden moments I'm like, yeah, I need to change what I'm doing. There are moments like that. It's just that I don't want something very big to happen to me. But also, I think recently my father passed away. So it was last year. So I think that was one of the incidents that really affected me. And it really changed the way that I really look at work. And I think I started committing more time to family and being with family, and being with people that I love. So I think that's something that really changed how I see the lifestyle. Yeah.
Yes, we can understand like we can't come in one day like brooming into that. So we have to work hard every day. Yes, that's true.
Mm.
So, what was the hardest decision you ever had to make and that made ethical conflicts within your circle due to that?
Oh, well, I think, yeah, so I think, yeah, so the people that I told you that I met when I first joined the organization, they were very close set of people to me. Um, but remember during the Easter Sunday attacks, there was a lot of hate comments towards the that particular minority, right? And I was completely against it in social media and in within my friends, sometimes with my family members. I knew that it's not right to. I mean, it's like your conscience, right? It's not right to blame a community for the wrongdoing of few people. It didn't sound right. So I stood up for what I believe, and I lost a very big group of people from that incident, right? Because I stood up for it. So I think I don't regret it at all, and I do not have any regrets about it, because I think it's important to have people that who match your sort of beliefs, and who, I mean, you cannot really consider them, you cannot really keep that close of close close group of friends, if you know they don't match your belief. I'm not telling that you should not keep people who are gay who have different set of views. That's not the case. You should associate every kind of people, but there should be group set of people that are closer to you, right? Your close circle. So that for those people should be somewhat have share the same beliefs. And also do not ever give up your values or give up your principles just because you don't want to lose a friend, or just because of that. Always stand for what's right. Always stand for what you know is right. And don't just follow the masses. It's very easy to be people pleasing and be accepted in the society if you conform to the popular belief, but don't ever do that, right? Always do what you think and what you know is right. So I think that's one of the important things, and I don't ever regret. And actually now those friends have actually understood the reality of it. We all know the reality of it. And don't want to make it very political, but we know the reality of it. And they are also have understood what actually happened. So they also have started talking to me. And you see, you need to stand on your grounds firm when you know that's what's right. So that is, I think, that is one of the conflicting things. But other than that, I think that was one of the hard ethical conflicts that I have to face. But other than that, in the organizations that I work, there's not a huge kind of ethical conflicts that I have to face. Mostly, maybe because of I have mostly worked with law students or other sort of volunteers in the community. So the beliefs are sort of in the same lines. We all believe in human rights. We all believe in justice. We all believe in rights. So because of that, there are not a lot of ethical conflicts. But definitely, I mean, when it comes to family, I come from a very conservative background. So I'm sure most of you can relate to that. So there are definitely conflicts, but you just need to stand on your ground, and you need to keep promoting what you believe. Yeah.
Yes, that's truly amazing. So it's being normal that repressions are transmitted through generations with or without your knowledge. So, what is your perspective on this and how to manage this? And do you have any solution to overcome this dragging over generations?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And I think I'm really glad that young people are talking about this, about passing off the generational trauma. And I think that's very real. And someone like that I really love listening to is Oprah Winfrey. I hope all of you have heard of him, have heard of her. So I think she talks about this a lot. I think some book that all of you should read is written by Oprah and another scientist that have worked on childhood trauma for around 20 years. So the book is What Happened to You. I'm not sure whether it's available in Sri Lanka as a hard copy, but I think you can download ebook, or you can maybe find it somehow. But if it's available to you, that's a book that you definitely should read. Because one thing that we need to understand is, when we are little, right, when we are small, we believe that whatever the adults do or parents do, the way they think, are perfect, that they are right. So that actually affects that the way we think as well. So when we grow up, we need to actually develop our own set of beliefs, how we think. We need to read, we need to learn history, we need to you know do our own reading and do our own learning, and also not to be hostile to whatever that generation, but also empathize with them, that understand that they are also begin that sort of generational trauma, that and knowing that, okay, this is going to end from me, right? Knowing that, okay, I'm not going to pass it on to another generation. So that's the most important thing. And that's what I said. You need to have that self development journey along with your career development, along with your professional development as well. So that's very important. So that involves, so the book that I mentioned, which is What Happened to You, that actually talks about the about about how childhood trauma or experiences affect a person in for their entire life. So that book actually mentions that what a child experiences in their first 2 months. I mean, we think that a child can't really understand anything in their first 2 months, right? They're just a baby, they don't understand anything. But they're saying that in that part is very crucial for how they handle stress for the rest of their life. And also, I mean, this is very scientifically proven until the first 5 years are very important to a child's future, like what they face. So it doesn't have to be like major child abuse. So we know that children go through that, some children, but it doesn't have to be only that. Just some sort of any neglect from a parent, or some minor incidents can have also that effect. So it's very important. So they give how you can tackle it when you're an adult, how you can manage it. So I think the key to understanding the generational trauma is to firstly empathize with them, empathize that, knowing that they're also passing it down, and also to understanding that okay, it's going to end with me and I'm going to not pass it down to another generation. So I think that is the key to it, and I'm really glad you asked that question, because not a lot of people are aware or very interested in things like that. But at the end of the day, um, you know um, for you to be a successful person, I think it's important to be a happy person as well. A lot of people, if you look at the biographies of a lot of rich people, or who are professionally successful celebrities, they are saying that when you become rich, you understand that money is not everything, right? I mean, until that, we want to earn, we want to be successful. For now, we feel like, okay, if I have this much, I can do this and that. But when you go there, you feel like that's not everything. So that's why it's important to have both your career development and also the self development journey. It's a journey of getting out of all these traumas, getting out of all this, knowing how to handle yourself, knowing how to carry yourself as a human being. So I think that's very important.
Thank you for that beautiful explanation. Actually, we can learn a lot from you, even from this question. So, have you ever been afraid of any initiative? Because most of the activists face a lot of issues because of political and other stuffs. So, have you ever been afraid to do some things because of this?
Not really. I think I don't think I ever give in to fear, and I think there's no point in living in fear as well. And if you are becoming an activist, you need to overcome that sort of fear, and especially if you are a political activist, and um, you shouldn't even worry about, oh my God, are they going to like kidnap me or kill me? I mean, not in that stage actually, but it's actually I mean, ideally people who stand against should be at all time protected, but I mean, if not for the people that who overcame fear and actually confronted the wrongdoers or the politicians, I mean, we won't have that, or the information, or these initiatives that actually change the lives of many people. So I think it's very important to overcome fear, and I don't think I have ever faced that. And I just, whatever comes to my head, I just post it. I don't think, okay, what will this person will think of this, and whatever the initiative, or even if I'm in a media conference, if I want to say anything, I say that. I just don't think how this will be perceived by, this politician, etc. I mean, you cannot really be afraid of them, right? I think this is some message that's not really about self-development, but I want to give to all of you, because you're young people who are citizens. So as a citizen, politics do matter to you, right? It matters to every one of us, even though you're from tech side, whatever side, it matters to all of us. So don't ever consider politicians, or because they're public representatives, right? So don't ever consider them as gods, or these ones who are above us. Don't ever consider them like that. Just know that they are there to serve you, right? They are there to serve the country, serve the people. So always hold them accountable. Always don't ever go after them for opportunities. Just build your own profile. It's the easy way, I know. It's easier if you want to have a job to go after a petition, but don't do that. I mean, just build, I mean, you're well capable enough. So build your own path, build your own career. Maybe people, I mean, I see that some of my friends who were my schoolmates and they are in these director positions. I mean, I don't know how on earth they went to that in certain ministries. So, I mean, it doesn't matter to me. I know they're my journey, and I wouldn't be happy if I choose a path like that. So, it doesn't matter at all. So, always hold them accountable. Do not ever let fear as a factor that would be a barrier for you in whatever your goals. So whatever that you want to do in your journey. And also always speak the truth, and don't be ever scared of that. And that's what we lack in the society and in the country, people who are speaking the truth and people who are very vocal, because they're silenced. If you look at activism, they are they can be silenced. So that's why, actually, I mean, I understand people being afraid, but we need more and more people. If the entire country as a whole becomes more vocal without any fear, then it's really difficult to suppress them. I think you also might have seen how certain journalists, certain activists were persecuted during past years. So, I mean, but there's more repression, oppression that's coming towards against those actions. So that is important. So fear is not, and also something is. It is about overcoming fear. Having fear is okay, it's normal, it's human. Don't be like, I'm so fearful and all that. It's normal to have fear, but it's also, there's a thrill in overcoming it and doing it anyway. So if you know that you're not in your comfort zone, so you know that you're actually doing something that is out of your comfort zone, and that's great. And always have that sort of thrill and excitement to do something that is out of your comfort zone. Something that I always, if I feel, if I'm going to do something, and if I, that inner voice telling you, oh my God, is this going to work out? Is this going to, is this going to fail and all that? That is when I'm going to do it definitely, because I know that I'm going to go out of my comfort zone, and that excites me. So I think that sort of excitement you need to build up whatever work you do, your career, your profession. So always be very excited about the opportunities that you get. And I think that sort of having that excitement is also what pushed me in my journey as an activist, getting to know the communities. Because I took up, if someone gave me an opportunity, I grabbed it, right? So I was not afraid of what are the consequences that it had, whether I'm not capable, or I didn't have any of that. I just grabbed it and I figured out how to do it on the way. Even though I didn't know how to do it, I figured it out after getting the opportunity. So I think that sort of having that drive, having that enthusiasm is extremely important. And you will definitely get it if you're in a field that you're actually passionate about. If you don't have that drive, probably you're not in the field that you're really passionate about. You're not really in that field that you're that you love to do, or that your dream job. We all have that, right? Which is different from each person to person. So if you don't have that drive, if an opportunity doesn't excite you, probably it's time for you to think whether you are in your passionate area. And you can definitely try different things, and no pressure on that. You have enough time to figure it out. Yeah.
Yes, that's really interesting and inspiring for especially for women, because it's they can learn a lot from that to overcome the fears.
I think I'll add something for that. I think I love being a woman, and I think I mean, it's great, and I think it has given me sort of empathy, especially as when I'm working as a leader. It has given me sort of empathy, and how to communicate in a. I think those are qualities that anyone can build, not a woman per se. But I think it is about loving being a woman, and I never consider it as a factor that would hinder me, even if I'm applying for a leadership position, right? I don't, I really don't. I don't think that I'm a woman, and whether it will affect me or not. I just apply to it as a human. So you see, you cannot. It's important, while knowing that yes, there are social restrictions or the stereotypes that are around women. but also knowing that, but it doesn't matter to me. I mean, I'm going to anyway break them. So it's just that, don't ever victimize yourself as a woman, and don't ever, I mean, we are actually used, we are made to think that way from little age. So don't ever think that, just if you're given an opportunity, don't think of it as a woman, think of it from your experience, your profession, your qualities that you have, the qualifications. Think from that perspective. Don't ever think, okay, if because I'm a woman, I won't be able to do it or anything like that. Just because, you see, I saw this research that said that if a position, I'm sure some of you might have seen this. So if a position asks, so if there's a job advertisement, they publish the qualifications that are required, right? So women don't apply if they don't have all the qualifications, but men apply if they have at least 5 out of 10, right? We want to be so perfect, right? We don't want to grab the opportunity because we are so worried that we are not perfect, we can't do it, we won't be suitable for that position, etc., right? So don't think like that at all. So grab the opportunity. That is the best empowerment that you can do to yourself. Yeah.
Yes, thank you for that. And as you're a senior for us, so you're brave enough to do as many things. What's your perspective to increase the confidence level of the beginners to overcome many different boundary of lines?
Mhm. I think best way to increase the confidence is, again, doing what you are scared of doing. So for an example, I think I had this fear of public speaking. I mean, I used to shake and I used to get like chills and all that, but I anyway became the president of the Rotaract Club of Faculty of Law, and then I anyway had to speak. I had to do it, like I had to get on the stage, I had to speak even while shaking. So with time it went away. So that's the message that I can give to you. If you don't feel confident about something, I mean, still I don't feel confident about everything. I mean, I'm still worried whether I should improve my public speaking, especially when it comes to speaking in Sinhala. And I mean, I schooled in Sinhala, but there's a separate way how they speak, especially in political backgrounds. You can't just speak in Sinhala. There's a way that they speak in public in Sinhala. So all those actions and all that. So you have those doubts, right? So I also still have it, but it's not about, as I said, giving into that. It's about anyway doing it, right? So if you're not confident, anyway do that. So that's the best message that I give. So eventually, if it's about public speaking, you will get used to it. Like first time you will think, oh my god, people are going to see me shaking, they're going to see. So it doesn't matter. Okay, the most important, one of the most important things that I abide by is, we have this, we remember the things that we did, like embarrassing things. For an example, years ago, we remember them and we are so embarrassed by them, but people are not that involved with you. Like people have their own work, like they have their own lifestyle. People don't remember what mistake you did years ago. So just, you can completely drop them, right? So even if you shook speaking at some meeting, right? Even, okay, let's say even if the people noticed it and they say, oh my god, he's not a great speaker, that's fine, because they don't remember it now. It's only you who remembers that, right? So that's the point. People don't remember. People forget things very easily. That's like, even in Sri Lanka, we know that. So don't give in to that. Do things anyway. And some of the small tips that I can give you is that there are I read some books on public speaking which came in very handy to me. Not how to speak per se, but small things that you can do. For an example, taking pauses, using quotes, things like that. If you are very into public speaking, because that's, I think, a thing that gives you a lot of boost in self confidence, right? Your posture, your gestures, your hand gestures, how you communicate with the person, right? Your body language. So these are the indications that you're confident. So there are a lot of books, there are a lot of YouTube videos. So at least allocate 30 minutes from your day. I mean, I'm sure you're on social media for more than that, right? Just scrolling. So just spend 30 minutes to at night, just when you're on your bed, just search this. There are YouTube videos how to improve your confidence. Okay, what are the tactics that you can use? Read books. I can't really remember this book. I'm not sure. I think this is Dale Carnegie's book on, no, that was on how to win influential people. I can't remember that. So there are a lot of content like that in the world. um, Go through them. And also, as you all are from a tech background, entrepreneurship, read books like Rich Dad Poor Dad, read books like Think and Grow Rich, right? These are very important. These are not about how to earn money, these are about how to change your mindset, right? How to change your mindset around wealth, how to change your mindset about money, right? So you need to read these books. And even though we are not very exposed to this, it's very important that you go through them, because I'm really happy to talk about these to a group like you all, because I don't see a lot of discussions happening around these books, this content in Sri Lanka as well. There are a lot of discussions happening abroad, especially in USA. They talk about, they have book clubs and all that. So do this research and always spend at least 30 minutes from your day to read these, to improve your confidence, to improve your how your mind works, to improve your thinking patterns, to how you communicate with other people, to improve your networking and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear from you, Sajini. And moving on, everyone here are unique and has different goals, but they have to go in a common path as a profession or passion within an organization or company or anything else. Here, how can we be unique without getting influenced, and how to survive without compromising their uniqueness?
I think that's a very great question, because we always I think it's normal. I think one of my teachers, when I was around in grade 6, they said that you actually imitate someone, anyone that you see, until you're around 30. Your actual personality comes out after 30. I'm not sure that if it's really true, but I think it's for a certain I mean, it's really, I mean, for some extent it's true, right? We actually, we when we see someone, we appreciate, we admire, we want to be like them. I mean, I think even I do that. I mean, the way they speak, the way they act, the things that they do, we really want to we want to do the same. I think that is quite all right. Just being unique is not being a completely new person, because I mean, everyone has shared interest, and everyone has, you know, some sort of a common ground in some way. So it's, I think the uniqueness will automatically develop when you follow your passion. And just because you feel like I'm not unique enough because these people also do, I mean, I used to feel that, because if someone else shares my same interest, I feel like maybe I should not be doing it. It doesn't sound unique enough if these people also do the same thing. So I had to get over it. I had to get over it and understand that okay, I like it, so it doesn't matter whether the other people like it or not. I like it, so that's one of my traits, right? So don't feel that pressure, right? If you want to imitate someone, do it. I mean, if you like the things that someone do it. It's completely fine. No one's going to tell you anything about it. Just see that whether it matches you, right? Just because I feel like one of you guys are like tech experts, amazing, it's not that I can do that, right? So whatever you can do, it's anyway unique to you, and you already know how to do it. So it doesn't matter if whether you follow small things from other people. And it's important that you have role models and you get inspired by people who have achieved in whatever your career or profession, because that means that if one person can do it, you can also do it, right? So I think we need to get out of that mindset of I need to be a completely unique person. It's completely fine to, you know, follow whoever you want and do whatever you want. And you know, it's completely fine. It's just that you're still on a journey. I mean, all of us I think in your 20s or somewhere around that, or even 30s. So I mean, we are still learning life, so it's okay to see what, you know, what do you like to do, what you don't like to do. So it's just a journey, and don't try too hard on being unique. When you go on your own journey, there, I mean, every one of us is unique. So that will eventually come. Okay, you're not a complete copy of someone else, and we can't copy someone. No one can copy us completely as well. So that's the important thing that you need to know. So so it's not something to worry about. Just keep exploring your likes, your dislikes, your hobbies, your interests, very little things, and that will become your personality as a whole. So I think that's a beautiful journey. So I think there's no pressure in being unique. Yeah.
Adding into that, who is your inspiration?
I think I have a lot of inspirations. It's not one person. I love Oprah, definitely. I love her. I love how she's very open about her childhood, her abusive childhood. She's a very open person. I like her honesty, and I like Jacinda Ardern as a leader, because she follows empathy as a leadership quality, which is very rare, because we always see very arrogant, being proud, being that personality that we expect from a leader. She bashes that. She follows empathy, kindness as a leadership quality. So I really like it. I think she's also very someone that inspires me. But other than that, there are very small scale people that I meet day to day. Some activists that I meet from rural areas. You know, Mothers who single parents. So these are people like you will meet day to day that will really inspire you. So I think. You don't have to have big personalities as inspirations at all time. Oh, also, I think Nelson Mandela, I really love him. So I think he's a great humanist. So I think those people I really admire and inspire me a lot. And but I think inspiration comes from anyone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. There are so many people who failed in something and gave up their goals, and another group of people who they didn't even try for anything. So, if they wish to restart their life, and what will be the advice for them?
I think if you look at failure, I mean, I'm someone who, I mean, I have developed it along the way. It's not something I was a I was a very sour loser. I used to be, because you see, I am because I was very sour loser, because at school I was very upset if I had low marks for certain subjects, and I had that competitiveness within me. And so the facing failure is something that I had to develop. And I mean, it will definitely develop if you go to a university from school. And then I think it's just that knowing yourself in and out, right? You fail at this point and you know that, okay, you're not really worthless. I think a failure becomes an issue if you feel you're worthless. If it's about your perspective, when you fail something, you feel like I'm good for nothing. I can't do anything. This is the only thing that I can do. But I can't do that as well, right? For an example, if you're passionate in something, your profession, you fail at some point. Let's say your entrepreneurship, you're very passionate about it, but it fails. Then you feel like, this is my passion, something I'm good at, but I can't even do that. So I think that sort of feeling worthless is the major issue when it comes to failure. But it is understanding that just life is a journey. It flows. So even if you fail now, there's a tomorrow, and you can definitely try it back. And I think when it comes to failure, it's not being I personally think having only determination is not enough. Determination is very important, but it is not enough. You need to use your head and mind and be very strategical, right? Being very strategic is very important, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, right? Um, because you see, we know that having determination plays an important role, but I also something that I've noticed is people we have glorified this sort of hard work, determined hard work. There's no success without hard work and all that, right? But I also believe being smart and having it easy. And being smart is very important. Being smart is not being intelligent, but being very strategic and being very smart. Knowing how you can achieve your goal in a way that you don't have to lose everything, right? So, while having determination is very important, also develop your skills when it comes to being smart and being strategic and understanding the full perspective of things. So, for that, you can talk to people who have gone in your same path, who have failed, and listen to them, what they did wrong, and how you can change it again, read stories about it. So, don't go after this glorification that you need to work hard, you need to fail, and to achieve something big. But also know that sometimes being smart, being strategic can make your path shorter. So I believe in that personally. And what when it comes to failure, how you can overcome it is analyzing the situation. As we all have heard, failure is not really a failure, but it is a lesson, right? So it is understanding actually what you did wrong and just revive back up. So I personally, if I fail something, if something didn't work out, I don't really spend a lot of time on it. I mean, next day I start thinking about, take some time. Maybe if it's like a very hard failure, take some time for yourself. But the next day you need to, nothing's going to do for you if you're going to keep your thinking about it. If you keep thinking you're a failure, just next day start thinking why you failed, how you can change it, right? How you can work around it. So you need to have that sort of determination in that way, and also some knowing yourself, that sort of self confidence that this is just a small setback, but I know who I am. I can definitely do it, and I'm going to revive back up, right? There should be a balance of determination, self confidence, and also being smart. So I think that's my take on failure. And failures don't really need to be spent at least one day in your life to get over it, but just next day you need to get back up. Otherwise it's just not really worth it. Yeah.
That's a smart answer indeed. To stabilize our setbacks, there need to be some kind of backup plans, I believe. So, in your life, how did you prepare those backup plans and how can we make it for us?
So I'll be very honest. I'm not someone who is having backup plans. If I want something, I'm going to get it, right? I'm not someone who thinks that if this doesn't work out, I'm going to do that, right? Maybe because in my career, the career path that I have, the goals that I have, the backup, I'm not sure. It's just that it would be not being me. So it won't be me achieving the goals that I want to achieve. So probably in your profession, if it is more related to tech, maybe having backup plans would mean anything. But I think I always believe in aiming to the moon because you want to aim for the moon, not because you will fall into uh, I think there's some idiom like that. I really can't remember that, but just aim for what you really need, not because don't aim higher because you want something less than that, but aim for higher because you want to go to that. You want that, right? Not other backup plans. So I'm not someone really that have backup plans, but I'm also being smart about, because you always develop it along your journey. Because for an example, when I was small, I think around 3, I really wanted to be a judge, right? I don't know how it came to my head, but I wanted to be a judge for some reason. And that's why I think that goal sort of were in my head for a long time. And that's why I pursued law. And, but then when I'm in the faculty, I got more interest in human rights and politics. And now I don't want to be a judge. And that's completely okay. And I know that I won't be happy doing it, even though it's my childhood dream or goal. I know that, my perspectives, my knowledge, my experiences have grown. So I have just diverted it to another path, which I'm more comfortable doing. And so I think that's about it. It's not just don't, it's okay to divert your path, it's okay to divert your journey, but don't have backup plans. So that, when you have a backup plan, I'm talking about life goals, okay, not backup plans for your business or not that, but in your life goals, if you're having a backup plans, you sort of have a belief that you might fail at some point. So it's important when it comes to your life goals to know, okay, there's no doubt that I'm going to achieve it. So I think that's the importance. So backup plans when it comes to your business models and all that are different, but this is about your life goals. This is about, you going for your dreams and goals. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that. So, do you think is there any scale for knowledge entrepreneurship?
Yes, I think knowledge entrepreneurship, as I know, it's more into technical side, right? I think it's more about knowledge based entrepreneurship. So as I'm not really an expert in that area, I'll talk a bit about social entrepreneurship, which I'm more comfortable talking about and I have experience in. I think nevertheless you can get some idea about entrepreneurship anyway. So I think the reason that I started the Democracy and Governance Initiative was that I have been working in a lot of different areas. For an example, environmental, peace and reconciliation, sexual and reproductive health and rights, gender issues. So all these areas, I'm still passionate about all of them. And I don't want to limit myself. So some people have told me that you see, just pick one path. You can't be interested in all these things. But I'm like, no, I am interested in all of these things. So I'm going to play a role in being an activist in all of these things. The thing that I learned in my journey is that most of these problems, almost all the problems in Sri Lanka in this public sphere, are actually a result of the governance failure. So I saw that we can give a solution for most of these problems if we can change the political system of the country, if we can educate people what's their importance as a citizen. How can they participate in democracy? Why do you need to participate? Why is it important? So I saw that lack of we're not giving solutions to those problems in a more up to down scale. You go to the community, you maybe do a program on reproductive rights, you do a program on gender equality. That's important. Yes, I do believe that's important, but also we need to change our laws to change the existing system to facilitate those. Otherwise we will be just doing social projects for generations to generations, right? So my belief was that. So the Democracy and Governance Initiative became an outcome from that belief. I wanted to change the mindset of the citizens, people, about how they perceive democracy, how they perceive governance, why things like rule of law, why things like good governance, which is very humiliated concept last few years, but it's actually a very important political concept. So I wanted to change the mindset of these things. So that's why democracy and governance sprouted. So I think that some lesson that you can take out from is that always knowing what you're doing, why you're doing something, and having a clear vision for it. So your vision is the key to that key objective. So when I started it, some of my close group, some people said that no, you need to have when you're starting something, you need to have like a proper document proposal. You need to write down your vision, write down your objective. I didn't do any of that. I just started it. Right, I knew that if I'm going to write this whole thing, I'm going to get bored in the middle, and I'm going to drop the whole thing. Right, I'm just really going to get tired of the entire idea. So I didn't do that. I just started the organization. I created the social media pages. I called out for core team members, and I got applications, and I figured the things out along the way. I just used that idea that I had, that one idea that I had, that okay, this will be the one of the solutions for Sri Lanka's this governance democracy issue. and I achieved it. If you try to overplan things, if you try to wait until everything is right, you have everything on their hand, you might get bored of it, right? So when you're at the moment you're having the enthusiasm, at the moment you're having that energy to do it, just start it, right? Along the way you can figure out whatever the documents that you need, whatever the all those heavy work stuff, you can figure it along the way. So I think that's the importance of it. And especially when it comes to social and entrepreneurship, the importance is you need to have a community a goal that relates to the something social issue or related to community, right? So if you're doing a social entrepreneurship, being clear about what you need is important, right? I think that pretty much applies to any sort of entrepreneurship. It's just that being clear what you need, and don't listen to a lot of people who says that you need this and you need that. Just start it when you have the energy to do it. Just start it with that goal. But along the way you can definitely develop all the required things for that, that structures, whatever the models, financial things and all that. Because when you start something, the importance of putting that first step, I think you all have heard that, putting your first step is the beginning of the 1,000-step journey. That first step is very important, because when you start that, you automatically get that push to continue. But if you wait until everything is sorted, okay, I'm waiting until I get this, I waited until this, I prepare this, whatever the model or structure of the organization, I write my vision down and all that. If you do that, you will just, your that enthusiasm might go, and you will not feel very excited about that idea anymore. So I think it's very important, when you want to do it, just start it off, and things will fall into the place along the way. Yeah.
Thanks for that mindful answer. So moving on, there comes an exclusive element. Let's make this more interesting. This is going to be a rapid fire. So we hope we can hear some interesting answers from Sajini. So are you ready for that?
No, but yeah, we can go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, and
Okay.
especially for you.
Okay.
So it's going to be somewhat personal about you and your
Right.
experience. So what makes you smile and what scares you the most?
Smile, anything funny. What scares me the most? Cockroaches.
Yeah, many girls do that.
Yeah. I mean, even I love horror movies, even. I'm not scared of ghosts at all, but yes, cockroaches gives me the chills. Yeah.
What is your greatest strength and weakness?
Strength. Um, my my how I think of myself, and my self-image. Weakness, I think definitely procrastinating. I have a huge issue of procrastinating. I mean, especially when it comes to studies. I know, I mean, I love studies, but I can be a sort of a procrastinator at times. Yeah.
Who or what makes you relax?
Relaxed. Definitely meeting friends. I have a very close group of friends, so I mean, having some quality time with them definitely makes me relax, and also talking and spending some time with my family. Yeah.
Yeah. So what makes you motivate when you are in struggles?
Um, when I'm in struggle, I think again it's my my belief about myself that I can somehow get out of it. So it's not anything else. It's just that I will, just like I have faced so many things. I have just overcame a lot of other things. So I can just definitely, I can overcome it. So I think that sort of belief. Yeah.
What are the key factors that you use to estimate the personality of a person when you're meeting for the first time?
Definitely how they speak, and how they treat me as a person, how their communication skills. Yeah.
What's the biggest factor that has helped you to be successful?
Being very I think it's having perseverance. Persevering is very important, and knowing my goal, and I know that even though there are setbacks, just being perseverance and just career despite obstacle or whatever stories that I hear from others or whatever it is, just be very having that perseverance to achieve them. Yeah.
That's it. That's really amazing. So thanks for taking that.
Phew. Okay. I hope I did it well. Yeah.
So it's time to listen from our audience. So guys, feel free to raise any questions. So if you raise your hands, we can give the opportunity, or you can ping even in the chat box. It's your time. Yeah, we have one.
Yes, madam. Thank you for the great time, and we have got a lot of things from you. And my question is, if a client approach me in a harshful manner, how can we explain our situation in a polite way to them? How can we handle that situation?
Yes, I think I have sort of been in that because I did an internship at the commercial bank right after my A levels, and I think and that's the only time I thought I'm not going to do a desk job ever again in my life. I think. But I think I think what we can do really is understanding where the customer is coming from, because always customer is the king, right? You need to customer, you are there to serve the customer. It's not that if they are being very rude to you, it's just that it's better to reach to someone from an upper level. But I think if they're just mildly agitated or if they're just mad, I think always what would because anger is something like what do you call this, when you open a can of beer, it just comes and goes away, right? So it's just that it's better to I think when you're the person at the end of it who serves to the customer, it's patience is something that you really want to have. And it's just that you need to cater to their needs. And I don't think anyone will be mad if their needs are not properly met, right? So I think it will be very diligent as someone worker, not even if you are not dealing with customers. So in any way, I think being very diligent is very important. That's something we lack so much, especially in public service. You need to be diligent. You need to have like good work ethics, right? You need to complete your work on time. So that you need to develop that sort of work ethics in your life. So for an example, so I mean, if you work that way, it's very less that you will face a lot of criticism, right? From your end, right? So it's just make sure that you are very diligent and your work ethics are in a very high level. So other than that, if you're dealing with a customer, I think the best thing is patience, and but not feeling like you're a victim, right? Don't take it personally, because it's not against you as a person, right? It is against the entire service. If you're working at a bank, it's against the bank, it's not against you. You're just a worker to that person. And don't take anything personally. It's just just know that this person is not mad at you, and don't think you're like I'm a bad person or anything. Just know that it is against the entire bank or entire business, entire service. And know that it's nothing for you to take personally. Just when you leave that office, just leave that with it as well. It's not something worthy for you to take out. Yeah, I hope I answered your question.
Yes, madam, and thank you for the great time, and you inspired me a lot.
I'm glad to hear that. No worries.
We have another one over here.
Good evening, ma'am. First of all, I'm very sorry because I have an unstable connection. That's why I can't switch on my camera. So the question is, I'm struggling between my career choices because I have interested in 2 different careers, but I still don't know what to choose as my long-term career. So how can I identify what will suit the most for me?
Can I know what are the 2 careers if you are comfortable with it?
Actually, I am doing my degree levels in the cybersecurity phase, and within that we have 2 type of the thing. One is a technical one, and another one is a documentation one. So
Right.
in that one also I have some type of the struggles, and as well as I have something other with which one is directly opposite for this one. I am actually I'm an independent artist, so I have some plans for going for that stage also. In that stage I am little bit struggling to choose the best, most and consistent one.
Right. I think that is sort of a question or any doubt that anyone can get at any point, right? Especially when you're in this age. Am I in the right path? Am I in the right profession? What if my passion is something else? I think the best thing that you can do is to participate in both and see what makes you happy and what gives you the energy to wake up next day and do that job, right? I think a lot of us we try to settle to a very stable job where we get an income monthly. Where I think this especially becomes an issue if you get married, if you settle down. You need to provide for that family. If you have children, you need to provide for them. So that sort of responsibility comes in, and you eventually settle for the safer job. But I think it's always important to follow your passion, because something that I personally believe is that living without regrets. I mean, I don't want to have any regrets at the point where I'm dying. I mean, it's a natural consequence of all of us. So at that point of death, I don't want to look back and say, oh my god, I couldn't do it, I could have done this job, I could have stayed in this. I don't want to have that. So that's something I really very heartily follow. So at any point, even though my parents want something, even though they think that this is a better job, so I mean, I still get comments like, you could have done, you could have become a judge and all that, but I don't really care. So I just want to do what I want to do, and I know that I won't regret it at the end. So I think having that passion, knowing that, so something how you can figure it out is doing both and see what is suitable for you. But also, I think if you're an artist, um if you are passionate for few things, I don't think you have a difficulty in doing everything. I mean, for an example, I personally, I'm passionate in both law and politics. So I definitely am going to practice law, and I'm definitely going to be part of politics, and I'm also going to continue my academic journey. So I started masters recently, and I want to do PhD in the future. So likewise, I don't think you should limit yourself to one career. Just if it's doable to have few. For an example, if you want to be an artist, if you want to do the tech side, just I think there's no issue. I think you can pretty much manage it. So don't settle down for it. I mean, what matters is that you're passionate for both, right? Don't ever settle down for anything just because you get money, right? Always, if you want to let's say, if you want to have a career in, for an example, if you want to have a career in art, or if you want to have your own business. So for an example, you need to, as I said, you need to be smart and strategic as well. So you can't just leave your job and start the business from scratch. You need some money to to live your life. So for that, you can balance. Again, the balance is very important. So you can have your job and leave some time. You might need to grind some late night hours until you start your own business, but that's worth it, right? You're following your passion. So after your business becomes successful, then you can quit your corporate job, your job you had, and you can focus on that. So you need to be strategic as well. Don't again, it's about balancing your strategy, being smart, your passion. At the end of the day, what matters is you're happy doing whatever the job. If you want to do 10 jobs, that's fine, but make sure that you're passionate doing all 10 of them. Yeah. Did that help?
Yes, ma'am. Exactly, and means a lot, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much.
No worries.
We have two more here.
Hi, ma'am. Good evening. I just
Hi.
want to ask something from you. In your opinion, what are some key differences you see between the mindsets of an average person and a successful entrepreneur?
I think that's a very interesting question because there are so many books that are written to analyze the mind of successful people, let's say rich people, because I think having wealth is one of the indicators that we see how a person is successful, right? So again, success differs from person to person. For some person, wealth doesn't mean anything. For someone, wealth is actual indication of being successful. So it depends on person to person. I think one thing that you can definitely do is read these books. There's a book on, I think, the practices of successful people. I think when you Google it, you will get tons of it. So one thing that I would recommend is Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club. So that's a very good book. It again, they have, if you look at the practices of them, is that they have a very they are very consistent. They some right somehow they wake up in the morning, they have this routine in the morning. So I think it's very important. I also want to tell this: when you wake up in the morning, don't do the first thing as checking your phone or scrolling down. Don't even touch your phone anytime after you wake up. It's going to really ruin your entire day. When you wake up, just have it for yourself, drink water, whatever it is, think about the goals you want to achieve, the life you want to have. Don't ever waste it on looking at other people's things, right? So it's very important. So there are, I think, the first, I think, likewise, again, you cannot really, how can I say, you cannot really say that, okay, a successful person did this, then this, and if you do the same, you will also become successful. This you can maybe have, develop yourself for a certain length, but also I think it's all about how you think of yourself. And I think there's nothing, I don't think there's anything like an average person. It all depends on your mindset. I think anyone can become successful. And we also have this sort of mindset: we need to be competitive. I will only be successful if my colleague or, my batchmate or this person doesn't succeed. I feel sort of that competitiveness. This opportunity is very limited. I can only become that. But how I see it, that if that person can do it, I can also do it, right? So without feeling victimized, you need to feel inspired if someone has something that you have, right? If someone is in a position, if someone has achieved something that you wanted to have, I think it's a very good moment for you to be inspired, not be, be discouraged or compare yourself. So I think your mindset, just work developing your mindset. But if you're very interested in very particular things, that what successful people do is, I think there are a lot of content on it. Definitely do read some books on it. But something that I personally believe is, because I'm someone who need a very good sleep, so I'm never going to wake that early in the morning. I'm a very heavy sleeper, so likewise, I know that it's never going to work for me. And so it's knowing that, but I really do practice that waking up in the morning and not touching my phone, and having that time for myself, and not to spending that time with other people, what they post and all that. So I think that's very important. And having that sort of practice and mindset is very important. And I think that will actually, it all depends on what you think is being successful, right? As I said, not to everyone that wealth means success. So some people, it's different. So it's about what is success, understanding what is successful for you, what will make you happy, and knowing what others did to do that, and learning from them, but also develop your own routine. Not everything will suit you. Whatever they did, maybe you won't be able to do that, but do whatever you can and learn what will suit you. Then I think along the way you will develop your own routine. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. It was too useful.
Thank you. I think we have 2 more questions.
Hi, madam.
Hi.
Hi, madam. I'm Yugandhari. So I guess you have already talked on my question. But so my question is, how can we move forward when everyone is telling that your idea won't work? Or how can I choose, like, when I'm in a position that I'm not sure about any idea, so how can I reject those ideas when I'm not sure about those ideas?
As in when someone tells you something, or ideas that you have?
Both, madam. When someone, like others, are demotivating us, your ideas won't work. That's
Right.
and another one is that how can I reject, like, when I'm thinking that this idea won't work?
Right. I think one thing that's very important to you, I think when you grow up, that automatically happens. You have like 2 or 3 people that's very close to you, and you reach them for very honest feedback. Not ones who are not jealous of you, or ones who are not saying the downfall of you. Very honest people. Few people you will have in your life, right? Even if you don't have, you will have someone, at least your parent, to reach to for some honest belief, or very best friend, or someone very close to you, that that they are very honest about your feedback, right? And if you don't have, you need to have start looking for, or see whether there's someone who is compatible like that for me to get some feedback, right? So I think it's important. So other than that, my advice is, don't listen to what everyone says, because not everyone knows everything. That's important, because a lot of people think that they know what they're talking about. It could be even the adults in your life, even they don't know everything. So that's the important thing, because as kids we think that they know everything, but they don't. So it's important to know that they don't know everything, and maybe you have your own personal experience. What you experience, so you might have your own intuition saying that, okay, this is the right thing to do. So it's you need to, what something that we really need to give up is listen to what everyone says, but also having couple of people to open your eyes to things that you don't see, because not you might not see it from the same perspective, you from different perspective all the time. So you need to have couple of people who are very honest with you to give you proper feedback. So I think that's important. So that's why I said, so sometimes you have that intuition, like gut feeling, okay, I need to do this is right decision, but also sometimes you feel like I'm a bit unsure, I need some second feedback from someone else as well. So because if you feel like that, just I think you need to talk to very close people and see what are their opinion about it, and having them is very important. Don't ever think that, okay, I need to make all my decisions alone. Sometimes it's important to have in certain instances, it's important to have another perspective to open your eyes. So people, they are not supposed to tell you to do this, but they are supposed to open, like, to change your perspective on it. Not to tell you, okay, you need to do this, but also, okay, look at this from this perspective as well. To change your perspective and to give like a very different solution. So I think have a couple of people like that, and also believe in your guts. It doesn't, if you believe that this is the thing for me, this is going to work out, then it doesn't really matter what others say, right? Even if it fail, let's say if it fails, it's a lesson, right? Again, that about failure applies. So it doesn't really matter. It's, life is a journey, as I said, so it just flows. So you're not, just because your idea didn't work out, if it failed, it's just a one step along your long journey. So it doesn't really matter. Don't, I think that fear of failure, that's something you really need to suppress, and your belief and your how you think about yourself, your perseverance needs to come passing that fear of failure. So I think then that will be very easier for you to make decisions. Does
Thanks, madam.
help?
Yeah, madam. Since I listened to everyone's like these ideas, so this helps a lot, me, madam. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I think that's sort of an issue. Especially, I think girls have that issue where you listen to everyone and you suppress your own dreams, your own desires, because you are so used to pleasing other people. Because we are supposed to be very, our pleasure comes from pleasing others, not by pleasing ourselves. So that's why we want to always make others happy, and we want to listen to everyone and be that good girl. So you need to get out of that. You need to get out of that and do what you want. But that doesn't mean being very arrogant and being very rude. If someone is making a point, listen to them and say why you think like that, right? Don't be rude to them. Okay, I know I'm the best, and just smack their decision. But just listen to why they want to do that. But also, if you feel like their opinion is coming from it's not very, it's coming from not seeing you success, or it's coming from a negative place, you will understand, and then you don't have to listen to it at all. But if you understand someone is giving you feedback, opinion, because they actually make a point, they have some experience, they do know what they're talking about, then definitely listen to it and take what you can out of it. But anyway, do that. So that's the entire point of it. Anyway, do what you want. If you fail, that's completely all right, so that you don't have any regrets at the end that you didn't do it right. It's completely okay to do something and fail. As I said, be smart. It's completely okay to do something and fail, but get back the next day. The point is that if you don't do something, you will definitely regret it. So that shouldn't happen. Yeah.
Thanks a lot, madam. Thank you.
No worries.
So sorry for interrupting in the middle. There is a feedback form we have shared in the chat box. So feel free to fill that and give your opinions on that. So we have 2 more questions, I hope.
Hello, Sajini. It was a pleasure
Hi.
meeting you today. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and insights about life in general. So my question is, what kind of qualities do you believe that an ideal politician should possess? And by saying that, who is your current favorite politician in Sri Lanka?
I think that's a good question. I think first is honesty. I really don't understand how a politician can be corrupt. You are using public money, and you have that obligation. I really don't get their mindset behind stealing public money. So I think honesty is the most important thing. That applies to not fooling people. That applies to not lying for your political agendas, not creating ethnic tensions for your personal benefits, your personal agenda. So being just honest, just speaking the truth. And I think, and the other quality that I really like is empathy. I think we really lack empathy in Sri Lankan politicians. They're very, they're very arrogant, because I think I interviewed a webinar with Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. And she said that when they go to the parliament is very masculine. You know what I mean? It doesn't. One reason is there are most of them are men. I think there are only 13 women. Also, the way they speak. I'm not saying that it's because men are bad, not at all. But how they act. It's they cannot really argue against it. I'm sure you have seen how they speak at the parliament, no, the way they speak, how they do mudslinging, and how they use all those words and all that. So she said that it's very difficult for them to survive there, because they're not used to it. They're not used to shouting like that, that behavior. So I think we need to have more, not only women, but also men, definitely, with empathy, qualities like empathy, how to communicate properly with another politician. So I think we need politicians like with those qualities, definitely. And I think someone that I really appreciate, as I said, Jacinda Ardern, because I hope you didn't mean in Sri Lankan context, but I think internationally her. But in within the country, I really like Lalit Atulathmudali, because I think he brought in a lot of value to the Sri Lankan political system, and also Lakshman Kadirgama. So I think those are some people that really brought in some actual value. I'm sadly okay. So from recent female politician, I really like Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, because she knows what she talks about. She's educated, and she stands for the rights and the benefit of people. So I really like politicians like that. So I think these are some local politicians that I really admire. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
So hi ma'am. So I want to ask about the opinion from you. So a person as a person doing the startups, and he's like to passionate on the entrepreneurships, but he's for again he's falling on the startups and the entrepreneurship. So he's moving through the industries work. So is that the choice is right or wrong?
I wasn't be clear about the question. Starting he's an entrepreneur in industrial, is it?
Yeah, he's like passionate on the startups and the entrepreneurship life.
Okay.
But he's doing the startup, then he fail on the startups. But right. With the society and the family issues, right. He changed to the industry. So that's it.
Right. Okay. So I think as I said, you need to see why you fail there. Something that we really, because especially young people coming into business, especially if you don't have parents who are doing business, you are not coming from a business background, so you're really starting from scratch, right? So you need to, when you're doing a startup, first thing you need to be very smart about it. You need to learn about startups. You need to learn about your own business. You need to, I think you'll know about it more than me, market research, all that. You need to, I'm telling that before starting that business, before starting that startup, you need to know who you are approaching to. That is why it is quite different from a social entrepreneurship, because for social entrepreneurship, it is for all the people. We know we know our community, we know exactly who will be benefited from it. But when it comes to other industry related or other area related entrepreneurship, especially focused on profit, in those kind of entrepreneurship, you need to earn profit, right? There has to be consumers, so you need to do that. That's why it's a very you need to be very smart and strategic before starting it. And you see, I really love watching Shark Tank. If you have heard of that program, right?
Yes,
you see how they have started. There are some entrepreneurs that have invested around, let's say, $100,000, and they are still not profiting. But there are some people who have invested around $300 and they are profiting so much. So you see, what I noticed in those stories were that they were being very strategic. They followed their passion, and they also knew how to handle that. They are very confident about what they're doing. They know their consumers. They know how the business works. They are not just following their passion, right? That's why I said that balance between your passion. You cannot be very foolish when it comes to your passion. You cannot just blindly follow it. You need to be very smart and strategic. Something I noticed in all those Shark Tank stories they are the ones who have really done well. They are very strategic. They know, they have done their market research, and they are very tactical. There are ones who have not failed, I would say, but ones who have not, at least when I watch Shark Tank, I always search whether that business is still existing. Some business go down after the with time. So the businesses that have gone down, they came out with a lot of passion. They talk with a lot of passion. The investors can see their passion. But when it comes to numbers, it doesn't really do good. You know, they haven't really, their margins are not good. You know, they haven't, their valuation is not good. So that they're sort of living in this, what do you call this, passion driven dream world. You know, they're not being very smart and tactical about the actual reality. So I think when it comes to business startups, I'm not sure whether you got anything from it, because I'm not very a business head, but I think it's something you need to do, is you need to be very smart about what you do. And if you balance that with your passion, I think that's magic. Just following, to be very realistic, just following passion without that sort of understanding, or without that sort of research, and you know, knowing how to approach investors, knowing how to develop the product, how to evaluate your business, without those things, I think you will be just, you know, you will be following your passion uh, for the sake of it, not really because you want to be successful, or you want to really expand it to a great business. That's what I think.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
Did I answer your questions, or do you need any clarifications?
No, sir. No. I get
Okay.
clear. Okay.
Yeah.
Hello, ma'am. My question is hi. My question is a little bit different. When it's come to an entertainer, social media or the society support them most of the time. But when it's come to an entrepreneur or social activist, it's totally different. Most of the time, it's a barrier for them. Do you agree with this? How do you see this in your perspective? And what makes social entrepreneur unique from others?
What did you mention at the end? I didn't get it. Is it when it's an artist? Is it what you meant?
Social media and the society support them most. But when it's come to an entrepreneur or social activist, it's a barrier for them. Do you agree with this?
You said that the social media and people support artists. Is it?
Yes.
Right.
Support them most.
Right. I think getting their support is not something that we can force, right? We cannot, I do not believe in making them feel sorry for us, you know, okay, we are also here, look at us, support us. I don't believe in that. But I believe that why do people support artists? Because why do they have so much fan base? Because they give them sort of entertainment, right? They give them back, they gives them something, right? They're entertained by their content, you know, they get some that pleasure from their content, right? So definitely, if you're a startup, and let's say if I'm an activist, and if I come to a position that people know that I'm giving them something, you know, they know that what I'm speaking is true, they know that I'm coming from a very truthful background. Or if you're, let's say, if you're an entrepreneur, if they really enjoy your product, if they really enjoy your business, you know, if your service is really good, then you will automatically gain that fan base. It's not something that you can force, or it's not something that you can, you know, tell them, okay, make me also just like me, like you, how you like the celebrities, you know. That's not something that we can force. That sort of having a fan base for any business, even an activist, social media, you see influencer for a very good example. It all depends on their content, you know. It's not that they just post a picture and they get so many likes. It's just that they work so much on what they post, they edit, you know, taking pictures. Some have separate social media teams, so it's very different. So it all depends on this, because we are in a very what do you call, very market based society, right? It all depends on what the consumer wants, and it all depends. So if you give them what they want, you will have that what do you call, you will have that fan base, you will have that community around you. And that's why you need to keep working and keep working for that. So especially in Twitter, in platforms like Twitter, and also I see in Facebook, not particularly on Instagram, there are many activists who have a very large number of fan base. So because why people rely on them, people know they are reliable sources, people follow them. So I think that's about it. So there are not only celebrities, there are authors, there are different kind of people who have that sort of fan base or that sort of community around it. So I think that all boils down to whether you give them whether you give them back something. So I think that's the ultimate question. So you need to keep working on getting that attention. And definitely we know how social media marketing works, right? If you really need that sort of fan base, you can definitely invest on sponsoring your whatever the page or your accounts. And that's, I think, another big lesson. But I think having that very organic reach is about what you give them back. Yeah. Did that answer your question?
Yes, ma'am. That's true. Thanks for your answers.
Okay, no worries. Happy to answer.
Seems like there are no more questions. So are you willing to answer one more question from me?
Sure.
So, what's your advice on time management for the young people? So, because they are struggling so much on that, who are stepping into their respective industry, especially from the academic life to industrial life.
Well, something that I tell you is I'm someone who is a very last minute worker, right? That's what works for me. But it only comes to studies. When I'm working in my professional background, I am someone who doesn't feel good until I finish something, because I worked as a research assistant, and I think that it's a work ethic that I got from my father. So because he used to be a public servant, and he finished his work for that day on that day. He was telling that others were having files piled up on his desk, but he finished that work on that day. So I think for me, I think when it comes to work also, I'm like that. I finish whatever given to me as soon as possible, as quickly as possible, because I don't want to carry that burden in my head to home or to other days, right? So when it comes to work, I'm very meticulous like that. I'm very I finish it like that. So because of that, I really don't have to manage any time. I just finish it as soon as possible. But definitely when it comes to studies, I think now you're like, you have other things, and I have other things going on, and other work and all that. I'm definitely a bit backward when it comes to studying on time. So as I told you, I'm very much procrastinating on it, but still I manage it, because I know that I'm someone who's capable of studying last minute. So I can manage that. It's not about knowing yourself, right? If you can't do it, it's better to study early. But other than that, I think when it comes to work, I think I am someone who follows that work ethic very, very strictly. So developing your work ethics is very important to you, especially if you're going to a job in the future, right? Because I realized that how important my work ethics were, because on the day of my farewell, my team leader specifically mentioned how I work, how I complete tasks on time. And I think that gives me a lot of happiness, and to know that I did my job well. So, and I think one thing is, I think if you cut back your social media for a while, you will save a lot of time. So I think that's a huge advice that I can give to you. Use options like, I think there's apps like some apps that you can restrict your social media apps for a certain time. I used it, and it works really good. I think it's good to, I think we are running in the social media stuck life, and we are so into using it. I mean, I'm also still struggling with it. I'm not a perfect user, but I think it's important that you try to day by day cut a bit time that you waste on social media, and actually use it for a purpose and only for your benefit. Yes, I need to tell this. You can manage a lot of time if you unfollow the people that really gives you okay, not a bad influence, I'll tell that really don't give you a positive influence, right? I have followed everyone that makes me feel bad about myself, the way I look. I have unfollowed everyone, right? I because we tend to compare ourselves, right? So I don't think that they're bad. It's just that for my own mental health, I have unfollowed them. And I'm very particular about things I follow, things I see every day, because even if you don't understand, we spend a lot of time on social media. And I think that's one of the biggest time wasters. So, if you go back to the time you were at school, how much time we had? We went to school for how many hours? We came back, we played, we went to classes, we did so many things. And at that time, we didn't have social media. And I think now our time is pretty much diluted by all these content that we absorb and how much time we waste. Use it for a good purpose. That's absolutely all right. But don't get stuck in this seeing comparing yourself to others and feeling bad about yourself. Don't get into that loop. I think that's the best thing you can do for time management.
Yeah, that's very true. So finally, thank you for accepting our invitation in your busy schedule and for the valuable time. So we got very valuable, productive answers from you, and it turned our day very mindful. So thank you so much for joining us with today and making this event more special.
Thank you so much, Vitu and Kirutikan and everyone for inviting me and having me today. I had a wonderful time, and I'm very happy to share all my opinion, ideas with you all. I hope you all took something today, and I wish you all the very best in everything that you do in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, and thank you all the audience who elevated questions. So we are very happy to see lots of volunteers over here. And so it's time for the most awaited moment. Do you all like to know who is going to be the winner of the contest, which was conducted on social media? So here we're going to announce the runner-up of the contest. He is Mayuresh Tavaraja. Congratulations. So he will be rewarded with a pizza package from us. So congratulations. And the most awaited winner is Sri Kumar Yadav. So especially I have to say this, he has found all the answers, and he has given the explanations for that also. So he'll be rewarded with the cash prize of 4,000 rupees. Congratulations, Mayuresh. Yadav. So time ran so fast, and it's time for the last event of our agenda. So I welcome Vigna Darshan, Head of Mobile Application Development of Gypsies, to give the vote of thanks. Vicky, the screen is yours.
Thank you. So hello and a very good evening to everyone. So today we had the first session in the series of Venture Versatile organized by Gypsies, and we had our guest speaker Sajani Vikramasinghe sharing her knowledge and personal experience with us throughout this session, which I hope was very useful to each and every one of us. So we thank you, Sajani, for coming here during your busy schedule and spending this much time with us. And I would also like to thank Virupriyanka Balasubramaniam, Head of the Networking, for doing a great job on hosting this event. Moreover, I also would like to thank each and every participant who joined us today for this wonderful session to make it a success. And last but not least, I would like to thank Gypsies for organizing such a useful event and connecting us with one of the great personalities in Sri Lanka. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this session, and I would like to remind you that we have more sessions coming up for you in the series of Venture Versatile. So make sure to follow our social media handles to get updates about the upcoming sessions. So once again, thank you so much, everyone, and over to you, Virupriyanka.
Thanks, Vicky. So here we come to the end of this session. So hope you would have thoroughly enjoyed all the answers. Personally, I got a fruitful experience throughout this session. So let's meet in the next session of this series with another guest speaker. And it will be conducted in the middle of October. Until that, stay tuned. Good night. Have a nice day and stay safe. Thank you all.